Recording.
Today it's recording.
It's working?
It's working.
But doesn't this have to stand straight? I don't know.
It's easier.
Yeah?
It's easier.
Right. Because it also records, as far as I know. וידבר השם אל מוישה לאמור, זוהי תהיה תורת המצורע ביום טהרתו. This will be the Torah of the person suffering from either one of the so-called leprosies of Negoim, who is called a Metzora, which we saw the details of all those in the previous parsha. This will be his Torah in the day that he will become purified. B'yom taharos say, v'huvo el kohen, and he will be brought to the kohen. Now that means either Aaron or Bonov, or in the later generations, anybody from the sons of Aaron, anybody from the mishpacha of the kohen. Is it working?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I think it's working.
Talk to the video machine also.
Okay, so this is Shir Klali with Rabbi Gaffney in Tafresh Ayin, and we're in Parshas Tazria Metzora.
Huva el kohen, he will be brought to the kohen. Vayoto ha-kohen el michutz lamachaneh, and the kohen will go out to the outside of the whole camp. V'roh ha-kohen, and the kohen will see carefully. V'hinei nirpo nega hatzoras min hatzorua, and behold, the melody of the tzoras. What the tzoras is the name for another name for these various negoim which have come in the skin or otherwise other parts of the body, and you will see that it's been healed from one who is suffering from min ha'tzarua. And then v'tzivo ha'kohen, the kohen will give orders, and they will take to the for the sake of the man being purified all the different inyanim which are necessary for the purification, which include 8 eres or shnei soilas and 2 birds, etc., etc. So to turn on the famous diuk, why does the pasuk precisely in reference to this Metzora, what Terach is well known, the diuk in our sages brought down in many places, but Divrei Rabbi Seinu, so that the word Metzora is indicatory of one of the ikar reasons why the whole melodies that we see reckoned out here occur. It's like a form of an acronym of 3 words, Moitzoi Shem Ra, or Moitzoi Ra. In other words, he brings out an evil name or evil reports about other people. Well, it's put down in the Teres Kahanim and in other places, well, it's a famous medrash on Sefer Vayikra, that there are our sages find 10 different reasons why these melodies hit people. But the first and the most emphasized in most places in Chazal and in the great Sifrei HaRishonim, the Achronim on the Parshas, is Lashon Hora or Moitzoi Shem Ra. But it's one, there's a slight difference between Moitzoi Shem Ra and Lashon Hora. Moitzoi Shem Ra means where you deliberately besmirch another person's reputation, or you make people think absolutely improperly about him deliberately. And Lashon Hara is where you tell things about what you know about him or what you claim you know about him, and people get a negative opinion from that, or they might form their own conclusions in an improper way. In other words, Lashon Hara is more like you just tell gossip and people form a wrong impression. But where you deliberately aim in your sentences to besmirch the other person directly, that's called Moitzi Shemra. But the Alter Rebbe deals with these inyonim in Shulchan Aruch in considerable detail right near the end of Siman Kuf Nun Vav in Chaim. Oddly enough, there's a whole big piece over there from the Alter Rebbe about Moitzi Shemra and about Lashon Hara and Orach Lashon Hara and all those inyonim. However, the opinion of most of the great authorities that the principal cause of these maladies to people b'derech ha'poshut biyoter was the Indian of Lashon Hara, even though there are 9 others. Amongst them are Gaiva and Gassus Haruach and things of that nature, but the main one is Nilmas in the name of this person, Metzora Moitzi Ra or Moitzi Shemra. So this will be the Torah, and this will be literally the Torah. The Pasuk could have just said, that Zu Taros HaMetzora, when he sees that the nega has begun to heal, then he has to be seen by the Kohen. Why do we have to say Zois Tiyeh Toros HaMetzora? That whole big leading up phrase. Beneged to the different things necessary to cause his full purity. V'huvo el HaKohen, he will be brought to the Kohen. Now, if you say huvo el HaKohen, then that implies that he's going to be brought to the Kohen. Huva is a passive past of the word to bring. Hevi, huva means he's going to be brought to the Kohen. And then we see immediately that the pasuk says, "Vayotza hakohen el michutz lamachaneh." We see that the kohen, on the contrary, has to go out michutz lamachaneh to the Metzora where he is. Now, the simple reason for that is, like Rashi points out, that the Metzora is sent away from all the shalosh machanes, from all the 3 camps of the Jewish people, from the Machane Shechina, or that's where in the desert, that's where the Mishkan was, and then there was the Machane Levio, or that was the camping of the Leviim around the Mishkan, and then there was Machane Yisrael, where that's where all the other tribes were camped, and then there was Chutz Mishalish Machanes. There was a whole area outside the 3 camps, and that was like outside all realms of the dwelling of Kedusha mitad the actual Machane itself. But the central Kedusha was produced by the Mishkan in the middle. So our Metzora is a very strict form of Tumah, that he's not allowed into any of the Machanes. He has to be sent out Michutz Machane, and as we saw in the previous Parsha, that he has to sit outside the whole Machane, and he has to not cut his hair or trim himself in any way, and his begodim have to be untidy with the whole thing, in order that people should keep out of his way. And if people come near to him, then he has to say Tomer, Tomer. He has to warn them that he's Tomer with the whole. So therefore, it's to be understood that the Kohen, in order to look at the Nega, has to go all the way out Michutz Machane, because the Metzora is Nishtaleach. He's sent out Michutz Gimel Kol Gimel Machanes. However, how does that fit in with the fact that it's written V'huvo el HaKohen? He has to come to the Kohen, and then it's written in the next pasuk Vayotza HaKohen Michutz Machane. Whatever for that it would appear. On the contrary, the Kohen goes to the Metzora, not the Metzora comes to the Kohen, and not Stam, but the Kohen has to go all the way out and look, as it were, for the Metzora and find him, even though he's Michutz Gimel Machanes Afilu from the Machane Yisrael. What does he see? He sees what the Metzora is for, that the signs and the what you might call the different indications indications of this melody have begun to disappear. And it's much in the Torah's Kahanim that even if, to a large extent, they've begun to disappear, not mamish completely, but they're noticeably on what you might call the way out, then he's able to already ask for tahara, and he's able to be paskin by the kohen that he's toya. Now here we see the first thing that is like boilet in the whole matter is that just like the scent of that tumor on the Adam couldn't be done without a kohen. We see that when he notices that he's got these signs of the coming of one of these melodies, and it's written a similar expression over there, V'huva el kohen, right at the beginning in Parsha Tazria, after having begun telling us what are the first signs of the first sort of thing, which is a Baheres. It's over there, it's written, V'huva el kohen, he'll be brought to the kohen. And until the kohen paskins that he is Tomei, then he's not Tomei. And similarly over here,
even if he knows he has the two hairs and everything.
Even if he knows, that's the whole big chiddush, that even if he's a Talmud Chacham, and he knows very well what are all the halachas, he's learned all the Mishnayos, and all the Arinyonim Benegel and the Goyim, and he's learned all the Midrash Chazal on those Inyonim, he knows the Dinim, nonetheless he's not Tomei unless the Kohen paskins that he's Tomei. So that we see is a chiddush din, which occurs over there, Benegel, to the descent of the tumor on the Adam, is Dakiduchai a Kohen. And so similarly the Torah tells us here that just like the descent of the tumor, the what you might call the gilui or the chalois of the tumor on the Adam is only alidei Kohen, similarly the tahara and the yitzia min a tumor is also only through a kohen. Now therefore it's written exactly the same lashon. V'huva el ha-kohen. Over there it's written v'huva el ha-kohen, and here it's written v'huva el ha-kohen. But the difficulty here is that here the guy's michutzla legimel machanes, and it's written v'huva el ha-kohen, and then it's written v'yotza ha-kohen el michutzla lemachane. What l'chayra, they seem to be, those two expressions seem to be vestira one to the other. So we need to understand how is it that they're not vestira one to the other. Also, we need to understand why does the pasuk tell us that zoish tiyeh toiras hametzora. We only find it in rare cases in the whole Torah that when we're introduced to a new halacha or to a new series of halacha referring to any given field in the field of all the halachas of the Torah, we very rarely find that the Torah begins saying Zois Toiras, this is the Torah of Inyan Pliny V'Pliny. No, it just tells us this, and this is the din. Like we said, I could have written it here very early in verse. And the fact that it says Zois Tiyeh, this will be the Torah of the Metzora in the day of his becoming Torah. Well, that tends to indicate that there's some very special message here in this idea of this will be the Torah of the Metzora. So when I get to the Huva el ha-kohen, it's interesting that Rashi doesn't comment openly here that he will be brought to the Kohen and then the Kohen will go out michutz lamachane. That's an open, apparent stira in the Lashonos, in the pasuk. One would have assumed that maybe Rashi would say something about that, and he doesn't. And if you look over at the beginning of all the melodies, where it's written that the first signs of the first melody, the Baheres, occur, V'huva el ha-kohen, Rashi's got a dibur on that word, V'huva el ha-kohen, but he seems to talk about something slightly different. And if you look over there in Parshat Tazria, you'll see that it's written V'huva el ha-kohen, and Rashi says over there, Gezeres ha-kosefu, it's the decree of the verse. In other words, it's a thing that doesn't necessarily make seichel or reasoning or tam al pi seichel at all. It's what we call a decree of the verse, Gezeres ha-kosefu. It's a Gezeres ha-kosefu that ein or gilu hatab or ein negoyim Tameim ba'odam ela al-yidei hoiruas ha-kohen. That there's no tumah occurs in the goof of the Adam from the Negoim unless it's determined by the Kohen. The Kohen has to say it's tumah. And so it comes along certain of the very great authorities, even Al-Pi Kabbalah, and they say that's a very rare thing that we don't find anywhere in the whole Torah, that if a person has got simonim which bring to tumah, that he's not yet tumah. In other words, he's tumah. He's got all the simonim, everything which indicates that he's tumah, but he's not tumah. In other words, if he never saw a kohen, and the kohen would never say to him, "You are tumah," he wouldn't be tumah, even though he has all the simonim on it, and even though he knows himself that he should be tumah, he's toah. Kol that the kohen has not seen him, and the kohen hasn't paskin and said to him, "Tumah ato." Now the same thing is going to be said here, but again to the tahara is going to be exactly the same way. So therefore, we could suggest that Rashi learns over there, if we think carefully about it, Rashi learns that this word huva, the huva is, like we said, a passive past. Passive means this thing is being done to you. That's the word passive. If you are being brought to the kohen, you are going to be, or he is brought to the kohen. Well, that tends to indicate that he doesn't have any choice or any brera bedova. He's got to go and see a kohen, and therefore Rashi says, because without the kohen, we'll never really know where we can never determine that he's tomei or a toya, and therefore Rashi says, that he has to see a kohen. And the father, huva el kohen, is the Torah's way of saying that he must see the kohen. And therefore Rashi says, gezerus hakosu, pirush adova, that I might have thought that it's like a special mile in the kohanim that the Torah gave, that they can decide, and they sort of, even if he didn't see a kohen, he's tummy. It's just like a lechatchila. It's a hidur, it's a special inyan to see a kohen, that he would have the privilege of deciding. Or it's not mamish, how would you call it, nogeya afil b'david in the etzem chalos of the tumah. And the far Rashi says no, huva el kohen is a gezerus akosu, that if there's no huva el kohen, there's no tumah. In other words, that there's no, all these dinim don't have any significance if not huva el kohen, meaning that you have to go to the kohen. It's not a episode, a nice lechatchila dikazach, or it's better to ask those who are more learned than yourself, it's better to give COVID to the kohanim. Well, that's a inim which is negeya in all these halachas. Without the kohen, ain't tumah. And certain of the great authorities, but Al Torah brings them in the Kutei Torah, they say that that's a pillar that we don't find anywhere in the whole Torah, Azamitzot. Yeah, and we find another thing when we get to the Negoim, which is also a Devar Pele, and the Al Torah brings it, Al-Pi Nigla over there in the Kutei Torah. Well, we can't go into everything, because if we do, then we wander slightly off the track. Of it suffices to say that there are certain halachas in this whole inyan of the Negoim which are very unusual and strange in their nature. And if Rashi doesn't need to comment over here huva el kohen, because he's already told you that huva el kohen means that there can't be any decision in the matter unless you see the kohen. And remember, just like over there can't be any decision in the matter. Gezerus hakosu. It's a door which is very called a fil b'de'evet. It's moinaya to decide if he is tomei. In the same way, you can't decide that he's toya unless it's going to be alidei hakohen. That's the lashon huva ela kohen. And therefore, the inyan of huva ela kohen is not telling me that first of all we have to bring him to the kohen, and then the kohen's got to go out michutz la machane. Well, that's a stira and I obey. Now, huva ela kohen means that it's a gezerus hakosu, that this can't become decided alidei kohen. Just like over there, that's what it meant. So the same thing it means over here. All the inyanim have to go through the kohen, and therefore, since Rashi's already told me what huva ela kohen means, he just understands that you understand that it's the same thing here in the opposite direction. Just like over there it was the falling of the tumah, in the same way over here, the disappearance or the removing of the tumah from the mensch is also huva ela kohen, which means that huva ela kohen is not a physical thing that you have to bring the guy to the kohen. Huva ela kohen means that nothing can be done without the kohen. It's moineya afilu b'da'evet if you don't have a kohen. And therefore the same over here. Me'anita, how does the kohen going to actually make his decision? Vayotza kohen al michutz la machane, he's got to go out and actually see, because the poor guy's on the outside of chutz mikoa agimul machanes, and if the kohen can't do his task unless he actually goes out and sees, because without him seeing, he can't possibly paskin. But that's another inyan that we learn from that Rashi over there, is that the kohen cannot paskin on the basis of decision. On the basis of description. If somebody comes to him and says, listen, I met Ploy and he's got this and this, what do you say? The kohen can only see, only if it's actually in front of the eyes of the kohen, then he can decide whether he's Tomah or whether he's Toya. Can't he? Well, as if you're still benefiting from what they call jet lag, or the other way. Not benefiting. It's you're benefiting from library lag. As a matter, the rest of us are all benefiting from Golas lag. The fact that we're still in the Golas, isn't it, Levi? Levi is worried about the South African Golas. You have to realize that the Rebbe is running South Africa. And the Boers are just a lot of bores. That's what I say. Anyway, that Rashi, without even mentioning here what is the purest, the Rashi leaves the tips for you to understand that there's no real stir between the huva al kohen v'yotza kohen el michutz lamachane. Therefore, the Chaim HaKodesh brings down another inyan similar to that, from the Teres Kahanim, and that is that once you notice that your, when I say you, I mean once the Metzora notices that his nega is disappearing and it's beginning to heal, then he shouldn't just leave it like that and say, oh, some other time we'll go looking for the kohen. I don't mind sitting here outside the machane for another few weeks or whatever. But he must not leave it once he Huva is also wasn't without asking him Baal Kochach, he's got to go and find the kohen. So how does he do that? He sends in a shliach to the kohen that the kohen should come out. But Huva el kohen means not to delay the decision in these matters. So the same would be to when he begins becoming Tomei. If he sees that he already has a siman, then he's required not to leave it and to immediately go to the kohen to require and to inquire and find out. So we see that's another way of being miyashiv the word v'huva. In other words, they're similar in content, implying aleph the idea of a lack of choice on the part of the order, and base that it's purely in the hands of the kahuna afilu b'da'eved to decide the matter. However, we see that l'cheira it's doira shabiyur in ruchnias ha'inyonim al choponim, why the kohen has to go out michutz lamachaneh. I mean, here we see, obviously, ainin musari hidden in the words that vayotza ha-kohen. What a kohen indicates a man of kedusha. He's a kohen is a server of the Eibishter, and he's moved out from all the people that he serves, and he doesn't have a chelik ba'oretz, but the whole inyan, he's a very holy person, and his inyan is lamrich shom l'shoresh lifnei Hashem, and here we say you got to go out to michutz lamachaneh, and you got to go looking for a guy who is Rahmanin Itlan. He's a Tomei, he's nimtza b'matzav loito, matzav shlili, and you've got to decide as quick as possible how to get him back inside the machaneh, and how to make him a toya. But obviously, that is derusha. That's derusha, a certain explanation. And as we said, what's this inyan of zois tia toiras hamitzay? So, come along certain people And I want to suggest that this whole inyan of Vahuva El HaKoyen, and then the inyan from Vayotza HaKoyen El Michutz Lamachne to the inyan of Gimel, Yitzia Michutz LaGimel Machanes. It's like we pointed out that the whole inyan of these inyanim is a ruchnistika inyan. This whole coming about of Metzora or tzoras in the guf ha'odom is a dover pili. And I asked the question, why don't we have it nowadays? Why was it something that appears to have only been in the time that the Yidden were in the Midbar, or only relatively shortly after they came into Eretz Yisrael and after the building of the Beis HaMikdash HaRishon? Although at a certain point we find that we don't find descriptions of tzoras anymore, and we find a very classical case of tzoras when Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe Rabbeinu in Pasuk Ba'al and Sefer Bamidbar near the end. And we find that they became, or Miriam rather, she became smitten with Neged Tzoras, and she had to wait for 7 days, Mechutz Lamachane, with the whole Arichas HaInyan. And then we find in Sefer Shmuel, we find the description of the 4 Metzoroim that were outside Yerushalayim, and they brought the news to Yerushalayim how Sancherib and his whole machane had been destroyed with the whole Arichas. So ask yourself the shaila, why is it that nowadays the inyan of the dinim of Tzoras are not nimtoim, and they're not noyeg nowadays? People, great Meforshim, come along Bariches, and they explained to us that this is purely a ruchnistika inyan, and it was only shayah that it should be in the world when Beklal, Yidden, and people Beklal, and Yidden b'miyuchad, were on a very high ruchnis tika madrega. So much so that the inyan of the nefesh and the guf reacted in a similar way, and inyanim which was shy to the nefesh could actually appear in the guf, and it was noticeable in the guf a fault that a person had benafshu. And therefore inyan for moitze shemra or gaiva with gasasrua, inyanim ka'ela, they would all of a sudden show themselves in the body of a mensch. And therefore, you needed a inyan of a kohen. There was a necessity of a person of ruchnistic status and high powers of ruchnis given by the Torah, and a kedusha which was sure in the kahuna more than shari b'nei oram. And therefore, all the decisions, even in halacha in the old days of the Beis HaMikdash, were be'ika al pi ha-kohanim. It's brought down in Sefer Devarim, and therefore you needed what you might call a rab. You needed a ish tzaddik or murumam mi'om, that he should guide you and show you, where you're, and help you to understand why it is that you're like that, and to tell you that, listen, you've got to make a serious tikkun bifnim b'toich haneshama and b'toich your avodas Hashem, because he's not showing itself on your guf. In other words, it's appearing on your body in yonim which are really indicatory of spiritual fault. And we see nowadays that it's lav dafki b'ofen kozeh, even though doubtless there are certain inyanim which are noticeable by great kohanim, great tzaddikim, although derech harog it's not so nimta, until the Rambam brings down that nowadays all these inyanim bazmanenu zeh, the ikri achrei the churban habayis, and particularly achrei churban bayis sheni, that we don't have all these halachas of the. And yet, nonetheless, the Rambam brings all the dinim of them, because the Rambam obviously is of the opinion that once there'll be the binyan Beis HaMikdash, there'll be the reappearance of Tachlis HaKedusha, but the possibility of these inyanim could somehow or another still be noyig and could still be real. And in fact, that's why it is that the Torah says that it's necessary, Baal Kochach, you have to have a kohen. You must have a kohen, because you can't really make all the necessary connections between your faults in Ruchnias, and that's what's appearing and showing itself, Begashmius Hagu. And that's the Indian that we saw in Pirkei Avos last week, Asay Lecho Rav. That's a tzivui, it's like a hechreach. And as the great Meforshim bring, the Rebbe spoke about a Bereah when the Rebbe came out with the famous Eirah, Asay Lecho Rav, that's something you have to do. Asay is Loshen Hechreach. Asay, the word Asiya in Loshen Kodesh means to force yourself. Even Baal Kochach is well known, that you have to have a Rav. You must make a Rav. Asay Lecho Rav. Mashikin Benegir Lechova, it's written Knei Lecho. Chova, that you can even pay him or purchase him. Okay, it's a how do you call it, a thing that's totally been in your relationship with somebody. Okay, however, when it comes to a Rav, Asay Lecho Rav, even if you don't see anybody that looks to you to be a very elevated person enough to be a Rav, you have to go up and say, listen, I want you to be my own. You have to be, and he's not allowed to be Masarev, with a whole. He's not allowed to refuse with all Arif is going to get to Asay Lecho Rav. And Al Yedei what you have a kohen in Ruchni, you have a kohen in Ruchni is what Inyoni is Ruchni, and Al Yedei you're able to recognize and to see what are the Inyonim, what are those melodies in Nefesh which are bringing to the appearance of these Inyonim Begashmius Haguf. And that's the Indian that he will tell you that you're Tomei, but he's also going to be there to help you reach and find the way to the Tahara, and that's all these in Yonim which are described here, how they are Baruchnias. It's brought down in the great Sifrei Amusa, the Maim Chayim and the two birds and the whole Indian. We'll talk about that briefly a little bit later as we go along. That's the Indian. As it brought down the Altshik, talks about a Bariches, the Rabbeinu Moshe Altshik, Zoish Tia Toiras Hame Toira. The Ike that this Kohen, this Rav that you must have, or this Ish Ruchni who's a Kohen, and he's all in and serving the Eibush, he will indicate to you where is your fault, and that's all. He's got to show you that the way out of the whole Indian of the Tzoras is Torah. It's through the Indian of learning Torah, Zoish Tiyeh Toiras HaMetzora. In other words, even if you haven't taken on yourself the yoke of Torah up to now, the way it should be, or from now on further, the etzem taking on yourself the Indian of the yoke of Torah, of the oil of learning Torah and learning Torah Lishmo, learning Torah because the Eibush does Torah and devouring yourself. B'kol Shari is to limud Torah, or Dafka Alidei Zeh, that will give you the power to throw off all the Simone Tuma and to become Torah to become Torah Be'emes. And then we have to understand that every Indian that occurs in the world is every Yerida is L'Torah Aliyah come over in Sifrei Hachsidus and Bariches, and even Mashmi Niglechak, that there's no such thing that the Eibishter makes a Yerida for the sake of the Yerida. And it's well known, the famous Biur from the Rebbe, the famous Sichas from the Rebbe, Afila Benagea, to the union of Satan, the woman is called a Satan, but that's a Masechta that we learned during the Oima, the Sfiras Oima, the union from a Satan, even the whole tremendous chashash and the whole apparently reader that she might have had eventually leaves it if she comes through and she's proved to be tahor, and on the contrary she will have children with kivachulu, that there will be a dafki from the reader. And the Rebbe points out that even if a mensch cholila is over an aveira, and he actually is over there, and he's to blame for it, and he did it amazing. Even that he has to know that why did Hashem be Masav of all the sivas that he should come to an Aveda? The whole purpose of that is that through having gone away from Hashem, there should be created in him a new nearness and a new marumas in Hilchos Tshuva from the Rambam, where the Rambam says that the Baal Tshuva, after he's done Tshuva, is closer and nearer and regarded more preciously and more valuably by the Eibush than he was Lifnei Zeh. But that's all in the Milas of Baal Tshuva. until the Mashor in a place has the famous Kachiyah that L'chera Baal Tshuva is a Choyte Nisko that he earns by having been a Balavera and doing Tshuva. He gets all sorts of amazing dearnesses and privileges from the Eivishter, what the Tzaddik doesn't have, is one of the famous Shaila visit. But Al Kaponim, whatever should be the terror, that happens to be the Indian, and that's why the Alter Rebbe said that everybody has to be about Tshuva. I took from the famous Indian, when they get to the Alter Rebbe, that his whole Indian is to make Bali Teshuvah, or not to make Bali Avedas into Bali Tshuva, but to make good people into Bali Tshuva, and I feel Tzaddikim. I don't know if you hold yourself to be a Tzaddik, or you have to become a Baal Tshuva. As well, the Fize, kommt is that what is the derech? What is the way? So is Tia Teuras, the Inyan von Eisika, Inyan von Eisika Teura, and busying yourself with Teura, and you haklotas, but again to limit Teura and devotion to limit Teura, they are the way that's going to bring all the oifanim which are going to purify you from this Inyan of Metzora and the Inyan von Tzoras. They're going to be able to be hatzlacha to carry you further in a way that you'll never fall back. Or das Inyan von Teura, so ist die Teura and the Alshir is Marik Baris Kedera when I get to Zeh how Teura and the limit of Teura and the devotion to the limit of Teura, and to be making a decision in your life that you're going to only learn You're going to only learn Torah. You got to do something else. You got to have a stikle panusa. The only of Ephes has to be in life. So he's married over there. The whole reason is that nonetheless you have to make sure that your whole ikka in life is learning. And there's more in this arichas. But even though you have to give a certain part of your day or your hours to looking after what's necessary, you have to know that that's only a dover tofel, and the ikka is learning, and that you got to arrange your whole attitude to the more material aspect of your life to see that it's only a dover tofel. Like Shammai Azochin says that you must make asay malachtacha arai v'teiroscha k'ah. You must make your malacha in this world just a temporary thing, arai, and teiroscha k'ah. You must look at your Torah to be a fixed and unshiftable thing, and that is the yesod. And therefore the Avshich and Marich are huge arichas when they get to, I think it's in this week's Perik, Pirkei Avos, right at the end, what Rabbi Tarfon says, that Ayoim Kotzov, HaMalocha Maluva, the last mission in Perik Beis, I think it is, but over there, Rabbi Tarfon says that the day is short, and much is the work, and the Poyalim are lazy, and the Balabos is pushing and stopping, and the Schar is Maruva, there's a tremendous amount of Schar, but the whole Arichas over there, so the Alshik says, what do you want with all that, what's it, this whole big, and then he comes again and he says that you should know that there's much Schar for you if you're Omel B'Torah, and you should know that the Ichas Schar and the Tzaddikim is lost. A whole big complete statement also on the part of Rebbe Tarfon. So just Baroshi Aprochim, the Moshe Alshich, he's masbid that there's all sorts of different types of people in the world. Some people say, look, the day is kotzer, life is short, we don't know how long we're going to live and everything. So if that's the case, look, once I've got all my gashmistic things masuda, and I got everything I need, and my wife and family, and everybody's already masuda, and I'm masuda, and everything is unterrate, and whatever time's left in my life, I'll fit in and I'll learn. That's one time. Hayim kota. No matter how much you learn in Torah, you'll never really manage to learn the whole Torah. So I'll just do whatever I can, don't demand of me too much. And he reckons out how all these different statements on the part of Rebbe Tarfon are really like tainas that people have, and therefore Rebbe Tarfon is coming to answer all those tainas, and he's coming to say, no, you have to devote yourself to Torah unconditionally, effectively, and that has to be killed the ikka of all inyanim in life. And if you do that, then you avoid the inyan from tzorah. You avoid the inyan from tzorah. And particularly, he says, b'derech hamusa, that you avoid the inyan from lashon hara and from moichi shemra and all what you might call the shmuzin, you know, and the how do you call it, the raid narum about the other person, you know, having. He said, because somebody who's really devoted to Torah, he's so busy that he can't be bothered, you know, looking at other people and finding out what's going on with him and schmoozing with another person about it and having a whole big, you know, how do you call it, Lashon Hara session with a whole miser. He's so busy and he's so Torah, and, you know, from Torah and the latest, you know, Kiddush. So he's got no time for all these, all these inyanim. And therefore, how do you call him? Rabbi Tarfon says to him that you should know that there's a lot of sachar just for learning Torah. I feel in this world. Just from learning Torah and devoting yourself, you have the best life possible. They have to pay you back with all sorts of good Sachen, and your cup is nish, you know, for Dreit and for Numan, in all the other inyonim, and you got Buch Hashem, you know, a holy world and a good world. Whatever you have to do, you know, when you get to inyonim, so that you have to do, but your whole life is really Torah. You know, you don't have time for all the, you know, seeing faults in other people and everything. On the contrary, if somebody comes and asks you for a bit of advice, you're only too pleased to help him, and you see the mile in other people. And on the contrary, yeah, you got time to give another person a good word and to be more of him, over not to find faults. Rahman in it, in other people. What it's well known that the ikar cause of the second long and terrible galus of the second base of Mikdash is sinas chinam. What the inyan from sinas chinam is that you just can't put up with other people because you're so busy looking at them to find out what's wrong with them and how they're moving in on your operating life and how, you know, they sort of they got better than you and you envy them. And remember, you come day pointless hatred, and it's all just a waste of time and energy. But it's a very expensive waste because it's marik to go. It's money in it. As the Alter Rebbe's Mavaya Barichas in Likutei Torah when he get to the inyan of Sinas Chinam in the Maimah Hecholzu. The Rebbe Rashab in his famous Kunshas Hecholzu deals with the whole inyan Boimek Al Piat Sidus V'chulu. And that's another view of the whole matter, how it is. Lefi a slightly more Derek Musa and Derek Drosh in this whole. However, if we come along, we see that the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah deals with this basic question that we brought up at the beginning of the Maimah, and the whole meaning of the tahar of the Metzora from his state after it already began to appear that it's disappearing from him. And the Alter Rebbe says that this inyan from Vahuva el Hakoyen, Vayotza Hakoyen al Mechutz Lamachane, even though B'derech Hapshat we answered that maybe it's not a stira, he says, but nonetheless, it's like two different movements in the verb, in the verbs being used. The two verbs imply two different movements. Huva el Hakoyen is mashma that the how do you call him? The Metzora has to move to the madrega of the kohen. He has to either go up and some way elbow himself to the kohen. Vayotza hakohen el michutz lamachane is an opposite movement. It appears that the kohen has to go downwards and out to him, and not to stand, but way out. Michutz l'kol hagimel machane. And says the Alter Rebbe an amazing thing. And his point is that this comes to teach us that the healing of the whole problem of the Torahs and the whole mokiv shurish of how people become the Tzoyroim is in the same thing itself. It's in the Zel B'zach. That's where you're not through a new thing, but as it were through the same thing. So that's how you're going to save yourself from the Torah. What does that mean? And later we're going to see in the Dvar Malchus from the Rebbe says a very similar thing. When they get a Geula v'Golos, and they being mamshik the Aleph in the Golos to make Geula, and to not worry about all the inyanim which are happening in the Golos, but to know only the inyan of the Geula v'Ka'etza b'zeh. So says the Alter Rebbe like this. What is the difference between somebody who's got a tzoras, and the bittul of the tzoras and the returning to a hyena or to being beyond these tzoras altogether. What is the main difference? So he says the difference is between what he calls moichin de emo and moichin de abba. He said, he said the difference is between the brain having to do with bina, which is hasoga and understanding, and the brain having to do with chokhmah. Chokhmah is koyach ma, the inen of bittul. The inen from bittul. Well, that's the difference. And he says that bina is great. Bina is hasoga, understanding. But what happens when you have hasoga and you have understanding? Then you say, I understand. I was mashing this particular matter. If you get a divine fire in yourself from understanding Torah, but it's a bit full with your importance and with your, what you might call, yeshus, your feeling of the self and your awareness of your own milas, that you are a maven in Torah and you're a Talmud Chacham is there, and really you get a desire to go higher and to know more and to become more of a Talmud Chacham, and more devoted to Hashem as you understand Him and as you picture the whole idea of Elokus. If remember, you have what's called in Siddur a rotzoy. Have you ever heard of a rotzoy? A rotzoy means a desire to go higher and out of yourself. How do you call it? Up and away. In other words, to go up higher and out of all the inyanim. However, since it's based on your opinion, your feelings, and you want to be close to Hashem, then there can be what's called a unique tinium. There can be a little bit of a, the little delicate clippers can sort of come along and they can sort of have little uniqueness. You can fall into Capado and other people. You can say, I'm the one who learns. So these guys, they don't really know anything. I'm into it, and I know about Hashem. Yeah. Or you can get angry at people, or you can get angry at your own family, or who knows what. I'm into it, and I'm out of this world, and I dare people who bother me and schlep me back into this world, the whole thing. In other words, the Rotze being as it is a felt and aware thing of your own self, even though it's, in your opinion, divine, it can really be a unique continuum. The Alter Rebbe says that even if it reaches Atzilas, there's even a klippus nega keneged Atzilas, that even in Atzilas you can fall into klippus. You know what the klippus keneged Atzilas is? You guys not familiar? It's put down in many places in Siddur. There's a famous klippa keneged Atzilas, and that's called, it's written there in Parsha Vayeta, I think it is, Vayishlach. It's written that one of the Alufei Esav had a Pelegish. It's written Pilagshoi Ushmo Riuma. He had a Pelegish, and her name was Riuma. So it comes from the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said, what's this name Riuma? What is it? Riuma. It's two words, Si, Ma. So he said there's some people who are really bottled. They're really bottled telephone. They really mean to be bottled, and they even krich very high, and they get up close to Atzilas. But what's wrong? They would like people to notice that they're high. They would like people to see it. They would like people to be aware of the fact that they are high. And therefore they say, Riu Ma. You guys, take a look. You see my Ma, you see my bittul. I'm tremendously bottled, telekuz. But somebody's got to be aware of this. I've made all this effort in my life, and I've made all these sacrifices. Nobody's aware of it. So therefore he says, Riu Ma. Please take a look at my bittul. In other words, it's a very, very high bittul, but it's got a bit of, how do you call it, his own hergeshas, to the point that he would like people to notice just how butler he really is. Just what to say, to use the expression, what a great guy he really is, al pi kedusha. So the Alter Rebbe, that is a klippa keneged Atzilas afil. Klippa is nege, and he said, Eina nimtza ba'Atzilas, because in Atzilas is mamshela, you don't have any klippas in Atzilas. He said, Abu michutz la'Atzilas, Umastir keneged Atzilus. It's not mamish in Atzilus, but it's right outside the oil of Atzilus, and it's mastir. It doesn't allow you to really see the emes, the light of Atzilus. I mean, that's pretty amazing going. And if you can have hasoga and you can have bittul telekus of it. Little sort of unique, then you go a bit further down and you say, listen, I'd like an article about me in the paper, I'd like a picture in the paper, and devoting myself to the ways of Hashem and to the Jewish people and all these sort of things. Little by little, what is basically a holy thing becomes a slight unique locutation. Not just slight, it can even become a genuine unique locutation because it's all based on Bina. What is the answer? The answer is Chochmah. The answer is Bittul. In other words, at Inya Soga, you got to have Siddhisha Bittul. And like the Rebbe said, the famous Sikh of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe Melech said about Norav Aviyu, that they would, in last week's parsha, that's just unbelievable. It's written the same Lashon. When I get to the Gil Elikus and the Mikdash, the Gil Elikus, that happens through them. They're tremendously high peoples. Tremendously high. Moshe said to Aaron, Yodei Ani Akshav, Shahim Gedolim Mimeni Umim. He said to Aaron, I see that they are even greater than you and me, not above you. Yet nonetheless they went up in fire, and it's considered a chait. You know what the Rebbe said way back in Toshik Kokvo, the Rebbe said, because not above you, they knew about our Rebbe, but they weren't really bottled to the Rebbe. They never really had a Rebbe. They knew the Rebbe was great, and they knew this. They knew he was a very amazing person. But when he was bottled to the Rebbe, they were. But therefore they didn't ask Moshe Rabbeinu, what should we do? Should we really do this? Should we not? And therefore they were, Rashi says they were Moira Halocha b'fnei Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, we don't really need to ask Moshe Rabbeinu about everything. Because we're tremendously high people. And they didn't really, even though they had a Rebbe, they didn't really have him.
Who was it?
We see there can be a Zamatziyas that a mensch can have a Rebbe, but he doesn't really have it. And you got to be bottled, you got to completely be given away to the Rebbe. Yeah? Then you know what you're doing. So what is being completely given away to the Rebbe? Moichin de Abba, that's a chokm. That's important. Bittul. They call it koyach. Bittul, legamri. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says, Perek Beis, when he's talking about the Shurish and the Neshama in Elikus. He said that how do you find that Shurish and Neshama? How do you find your Bittul to the Eivsa? Through the Talmud Chacham. Derech Hagav, I saw in a Pedish, they're very good. I saw not just a Pedish, it's one of the Talmud Yamaki, that he writes, that's why it's written, why does it have to be written min hatzarua? I mean, obviously it's been nirpo from him. Why does it have to be written as being min hatzarua? It should be hine nirpo nega hatzarua. And we're talking about the tzarua. Why does it have to be written min hatzarua? So he said that everything has to come from you. You got to realize that you got to be bottled to the kohen min hatzarua. You got to be bottled to the kohen. Not just that the kohen's going to help you. He's going to look after you, but it has to be min hatzarua. You got to be bottled back to the Rebbe, to the Kohen. And Mama, says the Alter Rebbe, you got to have what's called moichin de. You got to have moichin de Abba, and that's all what we spoke about last night. I think in our class that there was a inyan from the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, and the menorah was outside in the sanctuary. It wasn't mamish in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, but it stood in such a way that it was opposite the Oren, slightly to the south side, but it was it was opposite the Oren. In other words, it's got to be a holy flame. It's got to be flame, and all sorts of things, but it's got to be connected the Oren, and it's got to be Shemen Zayas. It's got to be a holy flame that burns with Shemen. So what is Shemen Zayas? Shemen Zayas, you quetch it and quetch it and quetch it until you get Shemen Zayas. And the Rebbe brings in a mind, Pasha Shmini, the Rebbe's got a whole beer that Shemen Zayas, the Inu from Beetle, the Inu from the Mailamitam, but that's higher than the Sogek, it goes up on top of the water always. The light of the menorah is indicatory of how you got to have moichende, you got to be alive and you got to be fire, but it's got to be a fire that's full with beetle of Torah and of Chokmah, how it is in the Oren, it was just the Inu Gil Elikus, just pure Gil Elikus. The Luchas, they were Torah, but they were just Elikus of Torah. And a fire, that's the whole Inyan with the answer to the Torahs is moichen de Abba. You got to bring back this Inyan for the beetle of Chokmah. In other words, you got to still keep learning. Comes on the Alter Rebbe, he said, yeah, even more than that. He said, you got to do exactly the same things as you did. You got to have a rotzai. Just like we said that the rotzai, and that was the beginning of all the trouble. He said the way to heal the Metzora is v'hu elakoin. He's got to go up to the. And he's got to have a rotzai again. You mustn't say to him, listen here, drop rotzai. No, you make him have a rotzai again, but this time you make sure it's in the right way. You understand? How does that? He said he has to do tshuva, because tshuva is a rotzai. Your tshuva is you're longing to get away and you're longing to go higher. You got to do it in such a way that you want to get out of everything, but you want to get out of everything in the Avish's way, not your way. And he said, listen, Abish, I want to come up, leave everything behind, I want to have a bren, but your way. The way the menorah burns, Shemen Zayas, inside the sanctuary, outside the Oren. I want it that way. You can go up as far as you like. And then then the Kohen will come down and he will give you ashpah that you'll be able to go anywhere. You'll be able to go chutz l'machane, you'll be able to be anywhere, and you'll be full of this divine fire, but it'll be a beetle dika fire. It'll be a fire which is full of beetle and full of knowledge of the Rebbe, of the Kohen, and you'll be mechutz l'machane. And he said that's all the oasis of the Torah, where you happen to be standing a long time in a queue or something, you'll say a few words of Tilim or a few oasis, and those oasis, that'll bring all the other kusim, all the Matev Manu, if you do with them in a B'Tovim, put children on somebody and you do something that do it, that you bring down the whole amazing Hashpah that you got through the Emes of Rotza, and bring it down into the world all around you, and make sure that you give over. And how do we do that? Through the Kohen himself, through the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the one who knows how it's got to be done. You remember, what does the Rebbe do? The Rebbe goes mechutz l'machane with you. He doesn't actually physically go, but he takes into account that that's what's got to be done, and he helps you to go mechutz l'machane. He gives you all the oisias, he gives you all the letters and all and that's what's called shoy. That's the opposite of rotzai. That's going back down into the world, not being afraid to be in the world, not wanting to run away from the world, but being out in the world, but doing it the way that it'll become full of knowledge of Hashem, Mola Ha'oretz Deya Etz Hashem. But that's the way the Rambam finishes it off and does it in from the Gula. That's in the Gula Shlema. Now we understand what the Rebbe says in the Dvar Malchis. We look up in the Dvar Malchis, in the famous Sikh of Tazria Metzora Tovshin Nun Aleph, and you see that exactly the Rebbe says over there, that begins the Isha Ki Tazria V'Yolda, a woman will become seedful, she will give forth seed, and she will have a child, a zocha, a male. So the Rebbe brings down, that's put down in certain madrashim, that's referring to the neshama of Moshiach. That the emes male, the emes strong person, is going to be Moshiach, and the Isha is Knesset Yisrael. That's all the Jewish people, they're like the Isha, and they're going to bring forth the neshama of Moshiach. So the Pasha begins, the double Pasha begins with the Gila of Moshiach. Yeah. And then we go back over to the Metzora, and the Metzora is the dignitary of Golas. You understand that Moshiach and the Yidden are still in the Golas. No, it's indicative of how you get out of the Golas, beyond Tahor Asay. In other words, we're going to describe what it's going to be like at the end of the Golas, how we're going to get out to reach that, what the Pasha puts down at the beginning. That's the final card. That's what we're aiming for. And therefore the Rebbe says exactly the same thing, in a different way. What the Rebbe says. He says, not the way is to run away, not the way is to try something else altogether, but he said the way is to do exactly what Kilo it appears in the Metzora, and what he's doing, but to do it the right way, to do it in a way which it will be Kedusha, and that will bring a Meila to the Tikkun of the Metzora. And so therefore the Rebbe said that means that you've got to understand that really the Golos is very, very high oilis, tremendously high, but it's all hidden in a sort of a masquerade. You can't really see the tremendous lights that are really there in the Golos, because there's like a mist over your eyes. You don't really see the emes. So the Rebbe said, day what you will realize and you appreciate that really the Golos is really the Gula. The Gula is really ready. It's all there. It's only dependent on us. If we've reached the end of the Gula, we're talking about this is the day of the Metzora. He's got to become Torah. We've got to get into the Gula. We've got to get out of this Gula. And the Rebbe brings the famous Gemara, Masechta Sanhedrin, where it says that Moshiach is a Metzora. Rashi brings it. The pshat is, the Gemara says he's a chivura. He's sitting amongst these guys who are chivur. And so Rashi brings it. That's an expression meaning a Metzora. That Moshiach is sitting amongst the Metzorim with Chutz L'Machane, and he's suffering the Golos, and he's waiting, and he said he wants to get out of here and go and save the Yidden, and he's got on his melodies, which are called the Tzoras, right? He's got these bandages. They stayed in the Gemara.